She was just another waitress with trembling hands and a cracked phone, until a man at table 4 asked for her name. Moments later, the quiet cafe in Baton Rouge would fall silent, as a decorated veteran stood to salute her. What no one knew was that Monica Hill's tears that morning were not just from spilled coffee, but from the weight of a legacy she had no idea she carried. Monica Hill's hands shook as she poured the next cup of coffee, the dark liquid trembling dangerously close to the edge of the ceramic mug. Her apron was damp from the splash that hit her earlier, coffee flung by a man in a suit who hadn't bothered to apologize. "You people don't know how to serve anyone with class," he'd hissed, brushing scalding droplets off his Armani cuff like her pain was an inconvenience. The worst part? Her manager, Troy, didn't even look up from his clipboard, just a sharp glance, like she had brought this humiliation on herself. It was a frigid Tuesday morning in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The wind outside lashed like it had a personal vendetta, and the only warmth Monica could afford came from the coffee pots she carried. Inside the Magnolia Spot Cafe, the din of clinking plates and low conversation didn't quite drown out the storm in her chest. Her phone vibrated again in her apron. She didn't need to check it. She knew who it was. Mr. Kent, her landlord, had already left 2 voicemails. The rent was late again, and his last message hadn't minced words. "You've got until Friday, or the locks change." Monica closed her eyes for a second too long, blinking back the sting. She didn't have a safety net. No husband, no family left. At least none that still spoke to her after she dropped out of the nursing program 3 years ago. That had been the dream. To wear scrubs, to help people heal. She had even earned her nursing degree, but she never made it to licensure. The fees were too high, and the jobs that paid enough were too far out of reach. So here she was, 28 years old, waiting tables at a diner where she was invisible unless someone wanted to shout at her. She ducked into the supply closet, closed the door, and slumped onto a crate of napkins. It was dark in the little room, smelling faintly of syrup and bleach. Her tears came fast, hot and ugly. Not from the coffee or the insults. Not really. They came from the hopelessness, from knowing that no matter how hard she worked, she was always just barely surviving. She pressed her hands to her face and whispered, "Just 5 minutes." But she only had 2. "Monica, order's up!" Troy barked through the door. She wiped her face with a paper towel, took a breath so deep it hurt, and pushed herself to her feet. She adjusted her name tag, squared her shoulders, and picked up the tray for table 4. He was an older man, late 70s maybe, neatly pressed shirt, a faded army cap resting beside a glass of water. He didn't smile as she approached, but his eyes, sharp, observant, a touch sad, tracked her every movement. She set down his meal. "Here you go, sir. Chicken fried steak, no onions, extra gravy. Can I get you anything else?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her face as if searching for something he'd misplaced years ago. "Your name tag says Monica," he said finally. His voice was gravel with an edge of something softer underneath. "What's your last name, miss?" She hesitated. "Hill." The fork slipped from his hand. He blinked at her. Once. Twice. Then slowly reached into the inside pocket of his coat and withdrew something wrapped in plastic. It was a photograph. The paper was yellowed, edges frayed, but the image was clear. A young black woman in fatigues, standing tall amidst a group of weary soldiers in a jungle setting. She had a rifle slung across her back and a defiant, impossible-to-ignore pride in her eyes. She was my mother," Monica said before she even fully processed the image. "Jacqueline Hill. But I never knew much," She died when I was 10. The old man swallowed hard. Captain Jacqueline Hill. We called her Iron Jack. He smiled, but it was a wounded smile. She led my unit in Vietnam, saved my life. More than once. Monica's knees almost buckled. A fork clinked somewhere in the background. But around them, silence bloomed. The man stood. It took effort. His hands gripping the edge of the table. His spine straightening slowly like he hadn't done it in years. The arthritis in his knees betrayed him for a moment, but he stood tall anyway. And then, in front of every diner and busboy and barista, he raised his hand in a military salute, the kind reserved for commanding officers, for heroes, the kind her mother had earned and that Monica had never known. Heads turned. A teenager at the counter lifted their phone, filming. A couple in the corner stopped chewing mid-bite. The cafe, which moments ago had been humming with the usual low roar of breakfast rush, went utterly quiet. Monica's throat closed. The tears returned, but this time they weren't bitter. They were a release, the kind that tasted like something unfamiliar, like hope. I was 23 when she pulled me out of a firefight in Saigon, the man said softly. Carried me 3 miles with a bullet in her leg. Didn't stop until we were safe. She never bragged, never asked for medals, but we all knew. She was the bravest soul in the jungle. Monica tried to speak, but no sound came. She talked about you sometimes, he continued. Said she had a daughter, said she hoped she'd grow up strong. He reached into his wallet again and handed her something small, an old military patch, faded but intact. She carried this on every mission. I want you to have it. She took it with trembling hands. Someone clapped. Then another. Then the entire cafe, every customer, every cook in the kitchen, joined in a spontaneous, heartfelt applause. And just like that, Monica Hill wasn't invisible anymore. Not to the old soldier, not to the cafe, and for the first time in years, not to herself. They talked for nearly 40 minutes, though it felt like mere seconds. Monica sat across from the old man in the booth by the window, her apron folded neatly on her lap, forgotten. Her manager didn't say a word. He had seen the crowd, heard the applause, noticed the phones filming. For once, even he had the sense to stay out of the way. Name's Roy Bennett, the veteran said, sipping his now cold coffee without a complaint. Wasn't much more than a green recruit when I landed in Saigon. Scared out of my damn mind. But she, your mama, walked through the chaos like she was born for it. He paused, fingers tightening around the cup. Most officers just followed orders. Jacqueline set them. Men twice her size listened when she spoke. She didn't shout, didn't need to. When you've been through what she had, you carry command in your bones. Monica could barely breathe. She never told me any of this. She wouldn't have. She was private but proud. She kept a picture of you in her pocket, even when it was soaked through with sweat and rain. You were her anchor, said she didn't fear bullets. Only the thought of never seeing you again. Monica bit her lip, willing the tears not to come again. Her hands were curled around the patch he had given her. She kept glancing down at it, as if to prove this wasn't a dream, that it was real. And the salute, she whispered. Why did you do that? In front of everyone? Roy's gaze turned steady. Because I owe my life to her. Because we lost too many like her who never got their due. Because people forget, and I won't be part of that. You carry her name. That means something. The photograph lay on the table between them. Monica leaned over it again, tracing her mother's face with her fingertip. I always thought maybe she was just another soldier, just a name on a folded flag. She was a damn legend, Roy said, and now people will know. He pulled a slip of paper from his coat pocket. There's a group of us, veterans from the 112th Infantry. We meet once a month. Talk, remember? Most of us still talk about her like she's standing in the room. When I saw your name, I couldn't believe it. That's why I asked. It was like seeing a ghost. At that moment, the bell above the cafe door rang. 2 people entered, reporters, local news, judging by the tags on their lapels and the unmistakable urgency in their posture. Are you Monica Hill? One asked, approaching cautiously. Someone uploaded a video from this cafe. It's going viral. Over 200,000 views in a few hours. People want to know who you are, who your mother was. Monica froze. She looked at Roy, who simply nodded. You don't have to speak if you don't want to, he said gently. But this moment, it's bigger than us now. Monica stood, unsure what propelled her legs to move. The cafe was full now, standing room only. More phones were out, but for the first time she didn't feel exposed. She felt seen. My mother was Captain Jacqueline Hill, she said, her voice trembling but clear. She served in Vietnam. She saved lives. And she was my mom. A hush followed. Then a voice in the back. Tell them about the salute. Monica glanced at Roy, who smiled. She commanded his unit, she said, her voice stronger now. And today he stood and saluted her memory, because she earned it. Applause broke out again, but not the kind meant for viral videos or internet fame. This one had reverence, grief, pride. Later that night, Monica sat at the tiny kitchen table in her studio apartment, staring at her laptop screen. Her inbox had exploded. Veterans groups, news outlets, strangers offering words of thanks. But one message made her hand fly to her mouth in shock. It was from the National Veterans Scholarship Fund. Dear Ms. Hill, after learning of your story and in honor of Captain Jacqueline Hill's extraordinary service, we would like to offer you a full grant for the completion of your nursing certification and licensure. America owes a debt to heroes and to their daughters. Her hands shook as she reread the message. Then again. She looked over at the folded photo of her mother, now framed and propped against her wall. For the first time in years, it felt like that photo was smiling back. It began with a news van and ended with a line around the block. By the time Monica arrived at the cafe the next morning, 30 minutes early, still wearing the same well-worn sneakers and second-hand coat, there were people already waiting. Not for lattes, not for chicken fried steak, but for her. A producer from Channel 9 News was outside holding a clipboard, trying to keep things orderly as more cameras pulled up. There she is, someone whispered, as Monica stepped onto the sidewalk. Heads turned, phones went up. A wave of murmurs followed her all the way to the front door. Inside, the Magnolia Spot Cafe had been transformed. Troy, the manager who hadn't said more than 2 words to her in months, suddenly offered a tight smile and gestured to the counter. We, thought maybe you could take a break from waitressing today. Talk to the press if you want. We're proud of you, Monica. Proud. From the same man who once docked her pay because a customer walked out without tipping. She didn't answer, just walked past him into the kitchen, where she could breathe. Roy Bennett was already there, seated at the staff table with his army cap on the chair beside him and 2 mugs of coffee in front of him, one for her. He looked up and smiled. You ready for all this? No, she said honestly. But I think I'm done hiding. He nodded. Then let's give them something real. Outside, the reporters weren't just asking about the video anymore. They were asking about Jacqueline Hill, about the legacy, about the fact that there was no statue, no plaque, no official recognition for a black female officer who saved half a platoon in the Vietnam jungle. And Monica, who had once been terrified of speaking up, found her voice. My mother was more than a uniform, she told the first camera. She was strength, she was kindness, and she never asked for attention. But if remembering her helps even one person feel like they matter, then I'll keep telling her story. One question kept coming up. What happens next for you, Monica? She hesitated the first few times, but eventually she told them the truth. I'm going back, she said, to finish what I started. Within hours, the Foundation's grant letter had been shared on national television. Messages poured in from strangers, nurses offering study tips, veterans sharing stories about Jacqueline Hill, parents telling Monica she'd inspired their daughters. And then came the moment that changed everything again. That afternoon, a quiet woman with short gray hair and a Department of Veterans Affairs ID badge approached her in the cafe. She held an envelope. No cameras, no microphone, just sincerity. We wanted to present this privately, she said, in memory of Captain Hill, and in recognition of the sacrifices her daughter continued to make. Monica opened it with trembling hands. It was a formal letter from the Department of Defense. Inside was a posthumous Medal of Valor awarded to her mother. And a second item, a signed commitment letter from the Veterans Hospital in New Orleans, offering Monica a nursing position upon certification. Your mother healed with courage, the woman said. Now you'll heal with care. Monica cried again, but this time, the tears weren't born of exhaustion. They came from something she hadn't felt in years: worth. 2 months later, Monica Hill stood in a crisp uniform outside the entrance of the New Orleans Veterans Medical Center. Her badge caught the sunlight. Monica Hill, RN. In honor of Captain Jacqueline Hill. Her first patient was a retired Army sergeant recovering from hip surgery. As she adjusted his blanket and offered a warm smile, he blinked and said, You look familiar. Weren't you in that video? She nodded. Thought so, he whispered. Your mom would be proud. Monica squeezed his hand gently. I think so too. And behind her desk, in a simple silver frame, was the old photograph. A woman in fatigues, arms crossed, chin lifted, not smiling, not posing, just standing tall, and now her daughter stood tall too.